The No Money But Dreams podcast is for those millennial dreamers
who try to be in the top 1%.
It doesn't matter what we've achieved.
We wake up every morning with the mindset that we're still broke.
We welcome you on our journey in search of that home run.
Which can change everything.
Everything?
Everything.
Welcome to another episode of the No Money But Dreams podcast. Today we're going to talk about Paul Graham's essays and his work more generally. And it is something that has really stuck with us. We got into the essays, and I think instead of everyone reading those essays, it makes sense for us to kind of summarize it and for everyone to take something away from it and kind of apply that to their life circumstances.
For sure. I mean, Paul Graham is obviously well known for Y Combinator, which is probably the pinnacle of startup accelerator that you could be involved in the US or in the world in general. He's actually British. And as you said...
You have to point that out.
Exactly, I had to say, from Great Britain Dotting.
Yes.
And he doesn't really write books, but he writes down all his ideas in sets of essays and also in tweets and things like that. And obviously what he says resonated with us. And I think it's just important to kind of go through the main points that we thought were really, really important in building a business and scaling a business. But really for people who are thinking about how to become an entrepreneur, how to start a business, what are kind of the key things you need to be thinking about and the key points which are going to be valuable for you and sort of lead to your success, keeping in mind that most people fail. Obviously, it's starting their own business.
Yeah, and one of the things that he talks about is, recruitment is the most important thing for a founder, which we have discussed in one of the other episodes before, why hiring is king. But that's really, it brings it back, especially when you're starting out a company, those first 10 employees that you have are probably going to decide whether you're going to make it or not. Do you hire the right kind of team in terms of skill sets, complementary, are they working well as a team together? That's such an important skill that everyone should develop.
And I think that a lot of founders get too caught up in all the different aspects, because when you start a business, I mean, not that you've started your own business, but you've started brokerages here from zero. You were, first employee. You just have to deal with so many things, And
a lot of people are not cut out for this. Especially, I've done this 3 times now. You don't have a license, you don't have a bank account, you don't have so many different things, and you need to find a team and find people and put them all together. And that is not something that a lot of people that are in the corporate world, where you just walk in and everything is already there, you just switch.
It's already chosen for you.
Exactly, you're just one piece of the puzzle and that's it. When you're starting, you gotta find people that are comfortable wearing multiple hats and they don't leave at 4:30. And you can stretch them and you can throw multiple different things. Today may look like this and tomorrow may look completely different.
Yeah, and it's a certain kind of person who will feel comfortable with that as their job description. So that's one of the key things you need to figure out. But then I think as you're coming back, since most people in the corporate world don't actually have the skill of how to put people together, at really to go from 0 to 1. So that's something important that you need to think about and something that you need to get a grasp on, definitely, if you want to succeed in starting your own business. Another thing that he brought up is that you want to build an undifferentiated commodity business. So I personally have, in my 2 businesses that I've been somewhat successful in.
You mean you don't want to build an
Sorry, you don't want to build. Yes, sorry. You don't want to build an undifferentiated commodity business. Apologies. So in number 1 with apples, when we were importing them from South Africa into Nigeria, that was a commodity business. There was no way of really building any defensible moat. If you had the capability of importing these items, one green apple is the same as the next green apple.
Yeah, if you can't differentiate with your competitors, then what's the point? You're just a Me Too company and there will be someone that will do something better and you can't differentiate and you're out of business.
So there's really no point trying to go down a rabbit hole of raising money, building that pitch deck.
I mean, maybe there is not for a scalable business like this, maybe it's just a mom and pop shop that you're trying to do and there it's fine. But if you want to have scale and if you want to go for something big, then you got to have something where you can build moats which are these defensible things that you can, over a long period of time, defend against competitors?
I think the only situation where you would potentially have a chance is if you had first mover advantage. So if you were actually creating something for the first time, which later down the line could be commoditized or could be an undifferentiated kind of business, then maybe you could build some sort of competitive advantage by being there. You might have economies of scale, which will allow you to be cheaper than the competition. But in general, the chances of you succeeding and making supernormal profits for you to reinvest and grow are pretty slim.
It's only for that period where there's no competitor in the market.
Exactly.
And when they do come in, then that erodes over time.
Exactly, which is exactly similar to what happened with the burgers. You know, we were first mover into the market in specifically Abu Dhabi, but also in the UAE. But with over the 6 years, I mean, every single person who has 250,000 dirhams has tried to open either a coffee shop or a burger joint. It doesn't mean you can't be profitable, but you're not making those supernormal profits, which are going to allow you to scale at the speed that we scaled the first 3 years of the life of Burger 28. And it doesn't really give you that much retained earnings for you to reinvest to build a more profitable business or to kind of scale out. That's why sort of franchising makes a lot of sense. As you're saying, in a franchise situation, each store is kind of like a mom and pop store. There's one owner. That owner goes on a daily basis, makes sure everything is good, and he makes a profit, which he's content with, you know, as having as a side hustle or as main income or something like that. But if you want to build something at scale, like you said, it just doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah.
He also said that if you want to build something unique, your best chance is to usually leverage some sort of new technology. So we've been banging on about this, for example, with AI. This is a massive shift in technology. And we were even discussing a company earlier today who jumped on the bandwagon, what was it, six months ago or something like that, and built a product. And now they're raising a ridiculous amount, I think a valuation of $100 million. You know what I mean? In a period of what, 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get 1.2 million users in 6 months, you know, you're hot.
100%.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when you identify a technology, usually the outsized returns are made leveraging that technology. So keep your eyes out for technology in general, technological shifts, what's changing, where things are going.
And then the cheaper it is to operate your company, the harder it is to kill.
And I think that is something that a lot of founders right now should have woken up about 6 months ago. But if you have a business, you want to be able to build a business that is as cheap to run as possible. You shouldn't be having a massive cost structure that's completely inflated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, people were boasting about the rounds that they were raising and how much staff they have, you know, how much growth they have, but no one looked at the bottom line.
And what Paul Graham says is that as a vanity metric, you want to be huge, but not huge in staff, but huge in revenue. You know, so he says that at every point in the company's growth, I would keep the company as small as I could. I would always want people to be surprised how few employees we had.
Yeah.
So the fewer employees, we come back to Naval, the fewer employees, the less of a manager you have to be, right? So,
which is also a massive headache. I mean, if you have to deal with more people, more of your time is consumed trying to sort out all the mess that they want to create. You know, if you have less employees, much easier to operate.
Less employees, easier to operate. Less employees, less drama. Less having to deal with people's... Okay, we're sort of talking about a tech company here, but like in the burger joint, the more people you have in the shop, the more issues you have, the more egos you have to manage, you know? And that becomes frustrating for a founder because you're maybe focused on the end goal and trying to get there, but every time you're starting to have that long vision and think about, okay, this is where we need to get to, you have to pull yourself back and deal with the nitty-gritty things, which is a complete distraction from not only the business, but also your juice, you know, your brain power. So the next one is that relentless always wins. And we have one of our favorite books.
Relentless.
Which is called Relentless.
Tim Grover.
And the definition of relentless is unceasingly intense. So with whatever you're doing, and I think you can testament to this because we were just talking about it. If you have something that every day you can wake up to, that you're passionate about, that you don't have these dips and ups, like it's just constantly you have the vision, you're relentless in trying to make that vision a reality. I mean, as obvious as it is, the chances of that becoming the reality is increased by tenfold. You know what I mean? So I really think people who want to start a business need to realize that they're going to have to be relentless. So you're really going to have to love or enjoy what you're going to do. You know, but otherwise you're just not going to be able to outperform the next person. You're not going to be able to be the best at what you do.
Do you think you need to be passionate about it?
I think you definitely have to be passionate about it.
But
or
like,
you have to have, no, you have to be passionate about it. But passion comes from past experience in something where you've succeeded, right? If you look at anybody's passion, they're generally after time become good at it. And that's why it's their passion. They're like linear. How good you are in your passion, in my opinion. So yeah, I think you need to be passionate about it. And I think in this day and age, you can build a business around almost anything. But obviously, you need to have that specific knowledge in that industry for you to have any kind of leverage in front of people if you're going to ask to raise money. You know, you can't be running a brokerage and then maybe want to...
But you could, for example, have worked in an industry for 10 years. You're really good at it. You're not really passionate about it, but you have a problem that you know how to solve. And you know, okay, if I execute this now for 3 to 4 to 5 years, I could have a much better situation than I have now. You're not really passionate about it, but you are a good executor, you are relentless, and you can just run.
I think that you would have trouble being relentless if you weren't that passionate about it.
Yeah, maybe. That's a fair point. Yeah.
If you just look at all the people who have, we're talking, again, no money but dreams. Yeah, we're talking on like a high level. We're not just talking about any business. We're talking about building something that could be like $100 million enterprise value. I think you need to be passionate about it. Like look at Steve Jobs, look at Amazon, look at all these guys. They're super passionate about the business that they built. We're not talking about being an executive and coming in. No, you're going to have to drive from 0 to 1 all alone, basically.
And then to 100.
And then to 100. But I think you got to have the passion.
Next is making money as a specialized skill.
Yeah. So you make money by doing something or making something that people want. We all know that. Those who make more money are just simply better at doing things that people want. I think this is a point where if you have started a company and it's maybe not going as well as you thought, or you've gone into an industry and it's not going as well as you thought, don't be so hard on yourself that it's not going well. But by the same token, have that clarity of mind to know that maybe what you thought isn't exactly the reality. You know, I think a lot of people get caught up with an idea, which kind of contradicts the relentlessness thing. You know what I mean? You get caught up with an idea, you think it's a really good idea, you haven't necessarily tested it, you don't have sufficient knowledge to know that there is the demand, and you end up creating something that people don't actually want. You know what I mean? And in a free market, prices are determined by what buyers want, you know? People like basketball more than poetry, so basketball players get paid more than poets. You know, it's simple, and as it is, I think it's also quite difficult and something you need to sit and think about in order for you to formulate a business which is actually going to make sense and actually be profitable. So in doing that, I think the value, if you are looking to start a business, is how do you find the intersection between what you're good at and what people want? You know, and finding that intersection, I think, comes from you having a passion, you having specific knowledge, and then understanding the market that you want to operate in. How big is that total addressable market? You know, that important slide that I think even more and more now is something that people want to know. How big is this opportunity? You know, because especially if you're going to raise money, people do not want to throw money at an opportunity which isn't huge. You know, give me $5 million for a $1 billion opportunity, or give me $5 million for a $10 million opportunity. People are going to go for the billion every single time.
Yeah, I mean, that's how VCs work, right? They need 1 or 2 or 3 outside returns to pay back the fund and that kind of stuff. Right?
So if you're not pitching an opportunity which is big enough, then you're probably not going to get the money. You're not going to get the right interest from investors, and
But I mean,
fail.
Graham talks about generally, finding the intersection between what you're good at and what people want, right? And I think everyone can relate to this. Like everyone can, whether you want to start a business or not, like do something that you're good at and that people want, and it will be successful in one way or another. Like I feel like a lot of people need to go within and understand, like, what am I actually good at? And what do I want to spend my time doing? Because a lot of people just wake up, you're in the day-to-day, you do your to-do list, and you leave. But you're not really actually doing something that you're passionate about or that you're good at. And if more people did what they're good at, a lot better results would come for them naturally.
And I also think identifying what you're good at, it's important sometimes to ask like your spouse or your mother or your father to get an objective, or your friend to get an objective view, because perhaps you're not fully aware of what you are really good at. You know what I mean? And honing in on that, like you quite rightly said, plus relentlessness, plus identifying a market where there is an opportunity big enough for whatever your appetite is, that's kind of going to be the key to success.
Next one is a really interesting one. Making money is not a zero-sum game. So explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I feel that a lot of people, like especially on social media now, when I post things about the cost of a burger and why this costs this or things like that, they get upset about the profit, even though the profit number isn't that huge. They obviously have no idea, and this is the younger generation. And I feel there is this undercurrent that for somebody to make themselves rich, they have to make you poor. And that is the completely wrong mentality to have. We know that wealth is abundant. There's opportunities every single day. There's opportunities in every single sphere, in every single country, some more than others, but there are opportunities present, And I think this notion of people getting wealthy because they're stealing from other people in a free market is completely delusional. Potentially in a dictatorship or in a country which doesn't have a free market, that could be the case. But otherwise, no. It's simple. People want something, people pay for it. People will pay what they think is the value of what you're selling. You know what I mean? And then it's a matter of looking at price elasticity. But take an example is that Steve Jobs didn't make us poorer by creating $1 trillion company. He actually made our lives better by creating the best product the world has ever seen, the iPhone. So I think that notion is really important, and it really hit home for me as well.
Before we go to the next point, just want to give you props. You've set out to do some more social media earlier in the year, and you've stuck with it, and now the numbers are really showing. I mean,
yeah, sticking to it.
You've had videos going into the millions, and
Thanks,
you have replicated what you've done for Burger 28 initially in a completely different era when it was all Instagram, to now really use TikTok for the business and for your personal brand, which wasn't an easy transition, but yeah, you're now even getting approached by people and having to promote them.
Yeah, and no, it's been a crazy journey, and it just shows you being relentless and setting out to do something and doing it every single day. That it's incredible what you can achieve. But in that in this particular instance, I'm very, very certain that the opportunities are in that. You know what I mean? I think that there's an outsized return there. I don't know how I'm going to monetize it necessarily, but I know the power of it. I've seen it, I've harnessed it, and now I need to figure out what the next stage is,
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. Like, you did all of this without really having an end goal, right? But you have an audience now. And I just read yesterday, Kim Kardashian went to Berlin to pitch LPs to invest in a fund, $1 billion fund, right? And a lot of and she has 350 million followers, right? So whatever she invests in, she has a very unique situation that she can promote these products to an audience that is really sticky and really listening, much better than any other VC could, right? So she can add value that other people can't do. So that got me thinking, maybe a lot of you see LeBron James, you see Serena Williams, you see so many of the celebrities now having their own kind of funds and investing in things, right? But it makes sense because they have the audience. They have people that they can just put products. So the idea is, will VCs, or the really successful VCs, be kind of people that have these platforms that they can help you promote or get kids started, go to market much quicker than other companies could.
I definitely think that's going to be the case. Like if you take something as simple as you have a dentist, you have a guy who's 65 years old with zero social media presence, or a guy who just came out of dentistry school who has 2 million followers. Which one of those two has more value for a clinic?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's going to be the same situation in every single tier, in every single business. And that's why we're sitting here. That's why we're having discussions and we're creating media. Because we know the power that it has. If 200 people or 2 people see whatever we're talking about, or 2 million people, that's more than would have if we hadn't sat for 20 minutes now and recorded this.
Yeah.
You know?
Back to Paul Graham. What's the next one?
How sticky is your product? And I think that a lot of people create products which are not sticky. And I've heard a lot of pitches before for different apps, but which are very helpful. You know what I mean? Like, would they improve my life? Yes, incrementally. But how often am I going to go onto that application? You know what I mean? And you're competing with some of the most addictive apps in the world, like TikTok, Instagram. I mean, how many times have you had to delete Instagram because you can't control yourself?
Yeah, I'm off Instagram at the moment.
Oh yeah, you're off?
Yeah, I'm happy to say. So whatever you're sending me, I'm not seeing at the moment.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I just, I think I can control myself, and then I find myself at some point scrolling and my kids coming and saying, hey, we want to play. I'm like, oh shit, I just spent 20 minutes or whatever scrolling. And so for me, it's very easy. If I can't see it, I can't touch it. It's the same with food. If you keep the snacks away from me, then I won't have them. But if they're in front of me, very difficult.
Exactly.
So that is a very sticky product.
It's a very sticky product, and if you are going to create something that you're going to have to try and take mind share away from these level of dopamine hits and stickiness, you really need to think about it. You know what I mean? Another sticky product, for example, is my POS system. I'm always curious to check how much money I've made.
What's the sales? Man, I remember,
what are the sales?
I remember back in the day when we were used to drive up and down the country, and I would look to the side and you'd be refreshing every single minute.
Yeah, super sticky. Okay, obviously because you're making money out of it, so you want to know. But I think a lot of people who are coming up with ideas for tech startups and coming up with apps need to really sit down and think about either is my product sticky or how can I make it stickier? You know what I mean? Something like food apps are super sticky because you have to go on there 3 times a day if you're eating, So there's certain solutions which are just sticky by default because you're doing it on a regular basis, or it gives you social proof like social media, or you need to eat 3 times a day like Talabat or Deliveroo, and then POS systems to see how much money you're making. So you need to really think, where do you fit into that world, in order for your product to be sticky? Because if people are not using it, then there's no way that you're going to build a sustainable business.
And if you have an edge, shut up about it. That's a great one.
That is a great one. And I think a lot of people, and me myself, when you figure out something, you get excited, you want to tell the world. But the truth is that you probably shouldn't. If you are capable of finding an edge on your competition, if you're capable of understanding something that your competition does not understand, you should probably shut your mouth. And I think that goes for people working in the corporate world as well, in one way or another. But I think it's an extremely important thing. And also in doing that, you need to realize that any competitive advantage you have at any point could one way or another be competed away.
Of course.
So never rest on your laurels, never get too comfortable, because you're only one step away from someone overtaking you. You know what I mean?
The next one is going to excite you. Design is timeless. I'm sure you have some examples, but what does Paul want to get across?
I think what Paul wants to get across is that if the best solution is ugly, then it can't be the best product. And with time, somebody else will find the solution and build a better looking product around it, or a better user experience. And I think companies kind of like Dyson are incredible in that respect.
Yeah.
I mean, Dyson is a privately held company, and I think they did like £2 billion or £1.6 billion worth of sales last year. And it's just incredible, man. And if you hear his
He's English, right?
Yeah, he's English. Of course,
What-
Paul Graham,
what an
Dyson.
example.
I know, right? Of course, he's English. But I just think that these certain products, and you'll see them, that the design, I mean, Apple, the design is perfect. Even from opening the box, look at your screen even. Everything they do, maybe you could have a faster processor, but who cares?
Yeah, I mean, we all know that the cameras on Apple devices are not the best cameras, right? There's other phones, Samsung, whatever, they have better cameras, but no one even thinks about switching.
Exactly.
Once you're in that ecosystem and you have Apple products, you know.
Again,
I mean, you have both, but I wouldn't even think about it.
super sticky product.
Yeah.
Amazing design, constantly reiterating, and always ahead of the game in what they release. Like, for example, the VR goggles that they came out with.
What about Porsche?
Porsche, I think, is a fabulous. You know what I like about Porsche and Louis Vuitton, two brands, which are timeless, is that they don't change their shape that much. If you go and look at a GT3 of 10 years ago and a GT3 today, there's small minor tweaks and differences on the shape of the car, even in the interior. It's relatively the same material, it's the same layout, slightly advanced. These small iterations make it so that if you look at some, I don't know, you look at some cars and from 5 years ago and today, it's a completely different shape. You can tell that one's an old one and this is the new one, you know?
Yeah.
Take a Louis Vuitton bag. I can show you a Louis Vuitton bag, for example, with the classic print on it. You wouldn't know how old that bag was, you know? And that's why it retains its quality and that's why it retains its value and they don't go on sale. These are other things, you know what I mean? Lucky for them, they can sell all their inventory. And there's waiting lists, for example, for Porsches. But when you're incrementally making your product better a little bit every single time and not a whole drastic change, it seems to work out better for the customer and also work out better for the company.
Yeah, they've got a very strong brand and people want their product. So.
Yeah, but why do people want it? People want it because I know that I can invest X amount. Let's say I can pay 10,000 dirhams for a bag 10 years ago and I can still use it today and nobody knows the difference. That's true value. Why does value diminish? Value diminishes, at the end of the day, a Louis Vuitton bag or a Porsche is a signaling tool. Yes, maybe you love driving cars and etc. It's a signaling tool, just like a watch. The same thing with watches. A Rolex that you bought 10 years ago still has value today because they're timeless.
Yeah.
Yes, the brand is timeless, but the brand is timeless because the product they create is timeless.
Yeah, we can go on forever. Let's bring it back to Graham. Competition sucks.
You talk to me about competition sucking. I know competition sucks.
Yeah.
I used to say, we are not scared of competition. We love competition. I take that all back.
Yeah.
It does suck.
Yeah. I mean, competition, if you're competing for the same customers with your competition, that's really not great. You want to find markets where you can advertise or where you can try and find customers where no one else is competing in.
Different pools.
That's what gives you an advantage that no one can take away from you, or it will take time for them to figure out to compete it away, right? But if you're just going into a bloodbath with competitors that have bigger marketing budgets, and that makes it very, very difficult to compete.
Yeah. I think first, for anybody out there who wants to start a business, is that first mover advantage is one of the greatest competitive advantages for a company or an entrepreneur.
You felt that?
Yeah, which I know that firsthand in two of the businesses that I built, which is we were the first to get the license to import fruits into Nigeria. And then secondly, being the first in Mohammed bin Zayed and maybe like the second in Abu Dhabi to start a better burger concept, which was locally homegrown. What you need to understand next is that competition destroys profits. You go from having super normal profits to just normal profits, or maybe just able to sustain. Your retained earnings are just reinvested in, you have hardly anything left. How can you avoid competition? Is by creating a monopoly. Now, we're not saying create a monopoly that goes against antitrust or anything like that, but you create a monopoly by building a competitive moat. And I think today, building a business that is harvesting data 24/7. And that data is going to allow you to offer your product in a unique way, specifically tailored for a customer, which will be very difficult to break that bond. What do you think?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, the more moats you have, the more defensible your business is. And you want to get away, you want to have something that you can defend against competition any way they come at you, you know.
Yeah, and aiming for monopoly and escaping competition is the only way to really create real wealth. And to do that, you need to look at a problem at a different angle. And I think that's it. There's a lot of the same problems come up. You know, you're either saving time, saving money, making money, you know, which kind of goes into saving money in one way or another. But how do you look at that approach is going to be how you're going to build a business which is going to accrue lots and lots of wealth. Just before we close here, every business is successful exactly to this extent it does something that others cannot. All happy companies are different. Each one earns a monopoly by solving a unique problem. All failed companies are the same. They fail to escape competition. And on that note, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for listening. If you want to check out Paul Graham, we'll put the links to his essays in the show notes. There's also 3 amazing podcasts from founders where he discussed the 3 key essays of Graham. And thank you for tuning in. See you next time. Have a nice day. Peace.